They told us to take up space, to be ambitious, to go after it. Nobody mentioned that you'd spend half your energy just earning the right to be in the room. That's invisible labor, and it's not just exhausting, it's keeping you stuck. This is Hustle Rebels. I'm Renee, your host, and this is a podcast for people who still want to win, but aren't willing to burn themselves down to do it. Welcome back to Hustle Rebels. If you're new here, I'm glad that you found us. And this week, I want to talk about something that doesn't really show up on any job description. It doesn't get a line on your performance review, and it certainly doesn't get a thank you. But it is draining you, silently, constantly. And by the end of this episode, you're going to understand what invisible labor actually is and why it goes way deeper than just doing more than your share. You're going to understand how it shows up in your body, in your brain, in your identity. You're also going to start to see it, maybe for the first time, for what it's actually costing you. And real quick, if this conversation is already hitting, make sure you hit subscribe. New episodes drop every single week, and this is not the kind of content that the algorithm is going out of its way to put in front of you. So hit subscribe so you don't miss anything. So I want to set up this episode as a primer because next week I'm bringing on a guest, Dr. Shruti Punjabi, whose work and live experience sits right at the heart of everything that we're going to talk about today. And I want you to walk into that conversation already thinking about all of this stuff, already feeling it. Because when you hear her, it's going to land completely differently. But today is about you. Today is about the invisible weight you've been carrying and just calling it light. So let's just hop right into it like the bunnies my dog likes to kill. So when people hear invisible labor, they think about the mom who plans birthday parties, makes every doctor's appointment, and keeps the mental calendar of the entire household running, while also holding down a job. And yes, that is absolutely invisible labor. But I want to expand on this because invisible labor isn't just domestic. It lives at work. It lives in your friendships. It lives in your ambition. Invisible labor is any work that you do that keeps a system functioning, but is never acknowledged, never compensated, and never seen by the people who benefit from it the most. It's the emotional labor of managing your boss's fragile ego so you can actually get your ideas through. It's being the person everyone comes to when they need support, but no one thinks to ever check in on you. It's the extra mile that you run to prove you belong somewhere that should have already welcomed you from the start. And here's the thing about invisible labor that people don't really like to talk about. It doesn't just take your time, it takes your identity. Because when you spend years doing work that doesn't get seen, your brain starts to internalize a story. It starts to believe the labor is invisible because you are invisible, that your effort isn't worth naming, that if you stopped doing all of it, nothing would be lost. That is a lie. But it's a lie that gets very loud over time. I also talk a lot on this show about burning the blueprint. And I want to be specific about what I mean by that here. There is a blueprint that most of us, especially women and especially overachievers, were handed before we were old enough to really question it. It tells us what success looks like, what our role is, what we owe the people around us. And a lot of that blueprint was handed down with love. I want to be clear about that. The women and the parents who raised us were operating from their own invisible labor, their own inherited scripts, and their own conditioning. And I'll be real with you, I catch myself running those old programs all of the time. I mean, my boyfriend texts me that he's on his way home from work. My first instinct is to stop everything that I'm doing and just start cooking. Not because he asked, not because I even have the bandwidth, but because something deep inside says, this is what you do. That is a program. It was installed a long time ago. And until I named it, I couldn't choose whether I actually wanted to run it or not. This is what the RAS, your reticular activating system, does. It filters your reality through whatever you've been conditioned to believe is true and normal and expected. So if the blueprint says that your value is tied to how much you produce and how little you ask for in return, your brain will keep finding evidence to confirm that. It will keep you working harder, asking for less, and wondering why you still feel so empty. Burning the blueprint isn't about blowing up your life. It's about getting curious enough to ask, whose rules am I actually living by? And that one question, it's a pretty scary one, because once you ask it, you can't unask it. But here's where it gets really interesting, because invisible labor isn't just the extra tasks. It's the mental bandwidth those tasks consume. Every time you navigate a situation where you don't feel fully safe or fully welcome or fully seen, your nervous system is working. And every time you have to code switch or chameleon yourself or manage someone else's perception of you, you calculate the cost of speaking up versus staying quiet. Your brain is working, and you don't get credit for that work. It doesn't show up on any output report, but it is exhausting you at the neurological level. Cognitive overload is what happens when your brain's processing capacity is maxed out. And we are all living in a time where there are more inputs than ever. You have social media, news cycles, workplace pressures, family dynamics, the weight of literally all the global events that are hitting our phones at 3 a.m. Your brain is not built to hold all of that. And when you layer invisible labor on top of that already overloaded system, something has to give. And usually it's your recovery. It's usually rest. It's usually parts of yourself that were supposed to get nurtured, but kept getting deferred. And that burnout that you're feeling, it's not weakness. It is a system that was never designed to sustain that chronic load. So what is it costing you to outperform a system that was just never built for you? I want to name something that doesn't get enough airtime in most conversations surrounding hustle culture. Not everyone is carrying the same invisible load. If you've ever had to work twice as hard to get half the recognition, or if you've ever walked into a room and had to immediately calibrate yourself, like I said, chameleon into something else, your tone, your language, your presence, just to be taken seriously, if you've ever felt like you couldn't afford to leave a situation that was draining you dry because of things that are completely out of your control, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The system rewards output. It does not care what it is costing you to produce it. And for people who already navigate layers of expectation, cultural, gender-based, racial, familial, the invisible labor tax is exponentially higher. And here's what I find most painful about this. The people that carry the heaviest invisible loads are often the last ones to name it, which is because we are conditioned to believe that if we're struggling, we just need to work a little harder, push through it, just figure it the fuck out. We were never given permission to say, this system is extracting from me in ways that are not sustainable. So I'm giving you permission right now. You are allowed to name what this is costing you. So here's what I actually want you to walk away with today. Invisible labor is not just household tasks. It is any work that keeps a system running that goes unseen, uncredited, and uncompensated. And it lives in your nervous system. The blueprint that you're running about what you owe, what you're worth, and what you have to do to be enough was installed much before you were old enough to consent to it. That doesn't make it your fault, but it does make it your responsibility to examine it. Cognitive overload is real, and it's cumulative. The exhaustion you feel isn't just about today's workload. It's about years of invisible labor stacking on top of each other with nowhere else to go. And finally, Outperforming a system that wasn't built to hold you is not the same as thriving in it. I need to say that one more time. Outperforming a system that wasn't built to hold you is not the same as thriving in it. You can be incredibly successful and still be running on empty. Those two things could coexist. The goal isn't to hustle harder inside of a broken system. The goal is to see the system clear enough to stop letting it extract from you without your awareness. So let's pull everything together. We talked about the invisible labor is not just your home, but at work as well, in your ambition and in your identity. We also talked about the inherited blueprint and how your RAS, your reticular activating system, keeps you running these programs that you never consciously chose. And we also talked about the cognitive overload and what it actually means when your brain is maxed out. We talked about the very real, very unequal cost of trying to succeed in spaces that were not designed to hold all of what you are. And next week, I'm bringing in guest Dr. Shruti Pujabi, who has sat in every one of these tensions, not just as a researcher, but as a human being navigating all of it in real time. And the conversation we had is one I think is definitely going to stick with you. So don't miss it. If this episode stirred something up for you and you're ready to actually start examining the blueprint you've already been running, I want to make this really easy for you. Burn the Blueprint is my 4-week identity reset. And right now I'm giving you guys, as the listeners, the first week completely free. There's no catch, just the real work that you're willing to put into it. So the link to the access for your free first week is going to be in the description show notes. Go ahead and grab it. And if you're not quite there yet, that's totally fine. Subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and everything else is in the links below. You're not broken, you're just running on an outdated system. So I'll see you guys next week.